Good day, everyone. It is the 13th of September 2022, and what I want to talk about today is geopolitical sort of news again. And seems to be a lot of people seem to be more interested when I talk about geopolitical things, economic, than my travel videos. I guess I'll be splitting into two channels at some point in time, and I don't get that many views anyway. But anyway, let's talk about what's going on in the world. And you have heard that Russia has given up a lot of territory, lost a lot of territory in near the Donbass area by the Kharkiv region. And there's some speculation, did they lose it? Did they get defeated? But it doesn't seem to point that way. It seems like it really was a strategic move to move their troops out of there, to get them out of ways harm. And some of the word is that they were in that area, but they weren't really making any gains. They were expecting that it would go differently than what it was. And so they said, why do we waste this manpower here? So that they moved. What they were planning on doing is using Lysychansk as a place to penetrate further into the Ukraine area, at least the Donbass area, which they were planning on getting full control of. And it wasn't working out. They had a forest area there that they couldn't seem to penetrate. It's like they call it Sherwood Forest, I guess, and that's where Ukraine was having like bandits that would inflict danger or harm onto the Russian troops. So, and instead of destroying the forest like the Americans would use Agent Orange or something and destroy the forest, but Russia is not out for destroying infrastructure or forests or even killing people, contrary to what you're probably hearing in the news in the West. But Ukraine is they care much less. As you know, they're shelling the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, and that could spell doom for a lot of people. We're talking millions. It would be like Chernobyl, maybe even worse. There are six reactors there. I'm not a nuclear physicist, but I know that I don't want any kind of nuclear disaster happening to me. So, but anyway, there is another type of danger, part of this, that it's public opinion has to a certain extent been negative towards Russia for doing this strategic pullback. And what some people think is that they shelled with one shell, apparently, a electrical power plant, and they thought that this was done in retribution, but it turns out it wasn't. What actually was happening, they shelled this power plant because what happened is, after this I guess you would call it a somewhat victorious offensive in Kharkiv, where Russia didn't lose practically anybody, and there's a lot of fake information I wouldn't want to get into, from the Ukrainian side, to make this sound a lot better than it was. But I won't get into that, like I said. But what happened was the Ukraine, after that offensive, and they had gained a lot of territory, they had planned to move a lot of their troops, which were not just Ukrainian, which were also NATO troops from other NATO countries. They were planning on moving them to the Kharkiv region, where they had been really badly decimated. 4,000 troops, I believe, they lost, and they didn't gain any territory at all. And apparently they see that is very necessary. That Kherson, excuse me, I probably said Kharkiv, but it's the Kherson region in the south. And but what happened? Russia shelled. They were going to move the troops by electricity train. Here in Belarus and Russia, they have trains that run on electricity. Very, very cheap way to travel. By the way, you can go 100 kilometers and it will cost you like €1. So they were planning on moving the troops by electricity train that long distance. It's probably, I would guess, 2,000 kilometers. And that would take a few days to get there. But Russia shelled the electrical plant so the trains couldn't move. So, that was the reason for that. If you have been following Vladimir Putin for many years, you find out he doesn't do anything in retribution for anything. He doesn't use his emotions to make these decisions. He does what's best for Russia, and a lot of leaders do. I think a lot of time they come down to that, even though they sound emotional, Trump or anybody, but they, are maybe quieted down by their advisors telling them, that far, far worse will happen if you make your decisions based on emotions. So that's how that one worked out. And being in Belarus, a lot of people are afraid here that Belarus is going to join this military operation. And that's a strong possibility, especially now given that Kharkiv is up in the north, and a lot of the fighting, of course, is for Kherson in the south, as well as other areas. And you might even find Odessa being thrown into the mix pretty soon. But as far as regaining the north, if they're even interested in doing that, but it's not really so strategic. And it's not really one of the main goals of this military operation that's been stated by Putin to have this northern part. It was, of course, to free the Donbass area. And I don't think that Kharkiv, I'm not sure where the boundary is and if that is in the Donbass area, what Donbass area is, it's mostly all pro-Russian people, and they're Russian ethnic Russians, and they all speak Russian, and the vast majority, by the way, anyway, and they don't really want to be a part of Ukraine, so none of them really do. So when Ukraine says they're going to liberate this area, that's not really a liberation when they don't even want to be part of Ukraine. And that's one reason why they've had this what they call a civil war. But anyway, if you consider that recently Poland has decided that that the pilots can identify with being Ukrainian and therefore fly in the Ukrainian Air Force. So it's like if you identify with being black, then you're black. If you identify with being a woman, maybe if you're a criminal and you identify with being a woman, you can go to a woman's prison, as has already happened, as you might have heard. So at present they have apparently Polish pilots in the Ukrainian Air Force, and you never know, they might be extending all of this and have there might be American pilots already in the Polish Air Force. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. You don't know. You're not there. So none of us are, except for maybe the American pilots if they're there. And NATO has already admitted that they're involved in these so-called offensives by Ukraine in Kherson and Kharkiv. You'll find documentation to that, and I think even Ukraine has admitted that. So, but yeah, very interesting things in this world going on today, and you have to see how this affects you. We're all looking at this problem with economics, and this whole thing is all about economics. And if you find out that this whole operation in Ukraine was spurred on by the West and the USA in particular, and Germany going along with that, and you see, these high energy prices that are going on. The high energy prices going on right now, I was always saying, and I was actually believing, that countries such as Germany are incredibly stupid, to be sacrificing the life of their country to get Russia. But it turns out, I believe, that what they were doing is, they all collaborated together, and they were provoking Russia to making this attack on Ukraine. And after that, they're all going to gang up on Russia and put these massive sanctions, like which they did, and then like vultures swoop in and take a collapsed Russia and start dividing the spoils, such as getting gas, gas and oil for next to nothing. It's almost like what happened in around 1991 in the collapse of the Soviet Union. And then Boris Yeltsin, he was shocked, and things were not really going well. The West was coming in and buying up lots of Russian assets, land, amongst other things. And I think what woke Boris Yeltsin up was when, after this promise that was made to Gorbachev not to take any more countries into NATO, and Clinton decided he's going to do it anyway. And Boris Yeltsin, I believe, how the story goes anyway, he said, you promised me that you're not going to be doing this. And Bill Clinton, in effect, just said, oh, well, we lied. And this whole game is to neutralize Russia. It's actually more to neutralize, or more than just neutralizing. It's to subject Russia to their will. And like I said, being a historian, and I kind of studied a little bit of this, at least as it relates to Germany. I studied a lot of German history. And you can go back in the year 1200, and they had built these protective, it's strange, you can say it's almost like a first NATO, European Union sort of a deal. And they built these like fortifications in various places. One is like modern day Kaliningrad, and that was built to keep the Slavs out of Europe. And we're talking, I believe the year is like 1205. And then you can even look at the time of Lenin, Vladimir Lenin. That was a PSYOPs operation that Germany conducted against Russia. Germany sent Lenin to Russia to cause the revolution and to cause who knows what destruction to Russia. And of course, Russia withdrew from World War I because of that. It's an interesting history, and when you start putting it in context about what is happening today, it would fascinate you. And you can see this theme of history that runs for hundreds of years. And it's either a fear, or early Russophobia from back then, or a hatred of Russia. I try to figure that out myself. What is it? Do they hate the Russians, or is it both? I don't know. And the U.S. is the same way against Russia, as you notice. But some of the worst, of course, are the newer states, the Baltic states, which I don't even know if they had a natural hatred of Russia and Russians. But they're some of the most people that froth. Well, I'm not saying that the people that live there necessarily, but a lot of the establishment there, they're frothing at the mouth to destroy Russia. So there's a very, interesting time we're living in. But I would say it is sad, but it's being over here in the east myself, Belarus, which is aligned with Russia and the Union State, I'm not really that fearful because, as most people realize, Putin is a lot smarter than all these leaders in the collective West. But a lot of things cross my mind as to why the West is doing this. Because nobody would bite the hand that feeds you. Anyone that has any brains, even a dog knows that, as you know, that doesn't bite the hand that feeds it. And to be doing what Germany and all these countries that depend to a very, very large extent on Russian gas, and there's no replacement, why would they do this? It's like it was a collusion, and they were going to swoop in and divide the spoils of what they're going to get from collapsing Russia. So that's the best scenario that I can think of why they would do this. You might have a different opinion. You can tell me in the comments. But the only other thing I can think of is, are some of these politicians compromised? Are they what are they, pedophiles or something, and if they don't go along with the machinations of whoever these establishment people are, the politicians and the billionaires, that they're going to expose them as pedophiles or who knows what. I don't know. Obviously, they can probably remove them from power at any time they want. But of course, another scenario might be the Great Reset. And I remember, and the rest of you might even have seen this, but part of the Great Reset is that all the countries have to go along with this. And obviously, countries such as Belarus and Russia are not going along with this. And so they're trying to take them down in another way. And you all should be happy that there's some countries that are going against this, because it's your own welfare. Unless you really want to be in the position where you own nothing and you're going to be happy, it's more like an order, not any kind of truth into it. You know, we can all talk about that. There's a lot of videos like that. It's very interesting things. So anyway, I should tell you right now, I am by a factory here where they make trucks and buses, big trucks. They're very, very interesting. As a matter of fact, let's see, here's an old one. This is an old, this isn't one of their new trucks. Let me show you. If I can get across the street here. This is probably some kind of a painted orange. Sort of a museum piece out here, but a lot of the buses, even in Europe, in Germany, are made here. Russia, Germany, your street buses. Here's if I can get over here too, another antique. It's actually not that old. Maybe it's 1990s. I don't know. Probably some earlier version of a bus. Oh, as a matter of fact, looking at the front, it is kind of new, I believe. It's probably just a retro style to make it look like it's older. This might even be a new truck over here, making them look retro style. Anyway, this is on my street. This is where I live. This is this factory is about 3-minute walk from my apartment building. And here's the parking lot, of course. I haven't been here when people are all going to work. I've been by here when a lot of people are getting off work, and a flood of people. The metro's only, who knows, 7-8 minutes walk from here. I don't know, maybe it's only 5. I haven't ever timed it. But just so you know, I don't live here yet. It's taken a long time to do my apartment. I mentioned the Great Reset, but there were other, I guess, think tank documents or doctrines or whatever that came before that, you know, such as if you've heard of the Project for a New American Century, and there's a section of that called Rebuilding America's Defenses, and in that section what's mentioned is to try to get a cataclysmic event, so to speak, for the United States to occur that would justify the United States being able to move into an oil-rich nation in the Middle East, and then from that nation control other nations that have oil and gas, of course. And of course, right after that, we got 9/11. But then there's another doctrine called full spectrum dominance, and then there's others as well. And there's things that we don't even know about. I don't know about, but you know, there are people that do. I suggest you watch Scott Ritter. He could probably mention quite a few of these doctrines. But right now we have the Great Reset, and it seems to be that's like a it's like, what do they call this, the new world order on steroids. It's all these billionaires and politicians and their dreams of owning the world, and the Great Reset is what they call it. I mean, that one even wants to put computer chips into people's brains and control them with it. You may not believe me, but you can find out yourself. And this is written by billionaires, and these are the most influential billionaires and people in the world. And I don't need to mention their names. A lot of you have already heard of the Great Reset and know who's behind all this stuff. And they say they've installed a lot of leaders, like in Canada and France. They even said Putin was one of them, but Putin might have even heard about all this stuff at the very beginning, but he's obviously not going along with that. And you look at some of these new leaders that we just got recently. There is, who's maybe even slated to be a leader of Germany at one point in time, this Annalena Baerbock, and she said that she would rather have the German people suffer than to have the Ukrainians live in want. So in other words, she's a leader of the wrong country. Obviously, she should be, somebody in the Ukrainian government. I don't know what the German people think about that. But and now you also have Liz Truss, another young girl, a little bit older than Annalena Baerbock. I don't know what these age are. Liz Truss might be somewhere in her mid-30s. I don't know. And Annalena Baerbock, she looks like she's about 22, but she's probably a little older than that. None of these people have any experience, and apparently they don't have any competence, and they don't even have the right headset. Their head is not set in a way that they should be thinking about the country that they're either elected or chosen to represent. Instead, they're representing who knows what, different countries and doctrines, world dominance doctrines, but not their own people. Very strange, but that's how that is. And we, all of us, you have to protect yourself any way you can. There's a lot of people that are predicting that the world is going to go through the greatest collapse in history. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. Maybe it will be in certain parts of the world. But there are some leaders, very few, such as in Hungary, trying to find out ways to protect their own people. And of course, I live in one country like that, is Belarus. The leader here is always, whether you disagree with him or not, he's always thought of the welfare of his own people. And we have tremendous propaganda campaigns that have been going on for probably 2 decades, trying to poison the people's minds here that they have a bad leader. I can make a video about that. That's very, very fascinating. So anyway, it's something to look at yourself. Look in history. Don't believe what I'm saying. I'm not no great expert in much of anything, except thinking I'm an expert in everything. Well, not really. Yeah, but just look it up yourself, and be prepared, because I don't think you can be fully prepared, but do as best you can. Until next time. Okay, that's it for now. And if you see this video, what I've never added is you should, if you like this, put a like, maybe subscribe. And I'm not out to get a bunch of money. I'm mostly doing this to keep people informed, and as a record for myself as well. So I look back at this in the future, and then I see, well, what was going on back then? It'll be interesting, hopefully not sad, because I'm getting younger. Some people get older, I get younger. See, I'm going to be 22 next year, so yeah, I have to keep up.